So we're going to do a couple problems using the product and quotient rules. You can see them right here. First thing is first. I would not use the product rule on this. I would FOIL it out and use the power rule. See this? I would not use the quotient rule on this. I would split it up and use the power rule. So keep that in mind always. With that being said, I am going to use the product rule on this just for practice, and I am going to use the quotient rule on this just for practice. One thing you might want to do is do it both ways, just for a good practice and to see how it works out. So here we go. The derivative here, using the product rule, is the first x squared minus 4, the first factor, times the derivative of the second factor, which would be 36x cubed, plus the second, 9x to the fourth plus 7, times the derivative of the first, which is 2x. So pretty simple. Now we're going to simplify, and you could factor out a 2x from both of these terms and do it that way. But here it just looks like it's easier because there's no real big exponents involved to distribute and then combine. So I'm going to do it that way. We're going to distribute the 36x cubed. So it's going to be 36x to the fifth minus 4 times 36, 24, 144, x cubed. Distribute the 2x. And now we're going to combine like terms. So we have 36 plus 18 is 54. So they all have an x. They definitely are all even, so I'm going to factor out a 2x and see if that gets me down to two factors that have no more factors in them, I guess. So now I can see there's no more common factors. So 2 was the greatest common factor. I think I'm good. So if I didn't do any dumb math mistakes, this is the final derivative. That's the product rule. Quotient rule. Again, I wouldn't do a quotient rule on this. I would split it up. Try both ways. Here's the quotient rule. We have the bottom times the derivative of the top, which is 3x squared, minus the top times the derivative of the bottom, which would be 1/3 x to the negative 2/3. So this looks like it's going to get a little messy over the bottom squared. So x to the 1/3 squared is x to the 1/3 times 2. 1/3 times 2, which is 2/3. Now here's a kind of look into the future. The best thing to do here is clean up everything. So in other words, you have two terms up top. Multiply these together. So I have 3x to the, this would be 6/3 plus 1/3, 7/3, minus. Now, all I'm going to do, I'm not going to distribute this. That's going to mess everything up. It's just going to, but I'm going to just write this term in front, just because that's how I like it. And by the way, if you got this, you did the derivative right. Now all this is simplification. So just focus on the top and simplify like we always do. I'm going to factor out a 1/3 from the top. And I'm going to do this in 2 steps. Again, as you're getting more used to this, you'll be able to do this all in 1 step. Unless you prefer to do multiple steps, it doesn't matter. So if I factor out a 1/3, this I have to multiply by 3. This 1/3 is now gone. And then continue to focus on the top. This x to the 7 halves and this x to the negative 2/3, well, you can factor out, as always, the lower of the 2 exponents, which is x to the negative 2/3. So remember, you subtract negative 2/3 or add 2/3 to both exponents. This becomes 9x to the 9/3. That always works out nicely. This x to the negative 2/3 is now gone. It's factored out. It's x to the 0 or 1. Make sure you keep these parentheses because now you know to distribute the negative. This thing's in your way. So now I'm just, well, you can see 9x cubed minus x cubed is 8x cubed. And finally, now it's all one single term. This 3 can go down to the bottom. The x to the 2/3 can go down to the bottom. Now, when you bring that x to the 2/3 down to the bottom, you can multiply x to the 2/3 times x to the 2/3, which is x to the 4/3, because you add exponents. Okay, that's it. So again, the quotient rule is not hard. You just have to remember. I mean, there's bottom times root of the top minus top times root of the bottom over the bottom squared. Simplification is all the work, but it's just the same simplification we've always been doing. Now, one comment here is this. 8x cubed is a perfect cube and 1 is a perfect cube. So this is not technically completely simplified. You can factor 8x cubed minus 1. I don't expect everybody to remember that, nor will I really ever. So you can leave it like this. But if you wanted to simplify this, it would be a minus b. So this would be 2x minus 1 times a squared. So think of this as 2x. 2x squared is 4x squared plus ab, 2x, plus b squared. If I remember that correctly. See, even I forget that sometimes. So I think this is right. If it's not, I will put a little note. And that's it.